Hello, my name is Megan and I am with Science Central. Today we will be going over the frog dissection procedures and tools. So I'm going to start with the kit that each of your students should get. It should include a spring scale, a pencil, a probe, magnifying glass, ruler, and then scissors. So we're going to start with the external anatomy of the frog. We'll start with this guy over here. So we start with, of course, his dorsal and ventral sides. So dorsal would be his back, ventral would be his stomach, anterior is his head, and then posterior is his rear. So some of the data that your students are going to be collecting is how much their frog weighs and how long it is. When they do that, they're going to measure when they measure how long it is, they're going to measure from the tip of their nose through to their foot, so they might have to stretch out their frog leg a little bit. For the weight, we are going to be using a spring scale. They will need to take the hook of the spring scale and insert it into their frog's mouth. This is sometimes easier said than done. When they get it inserted, they're going to go ahead and let go of their frog, and they're going to be looking at how much it weighs in grams. Our spring scales have both newtons and grams. You want to make sure that they're looking at the side with a G. So this frog is about 80 grams. So he has two eyes. And then back here on the back side of his face, or behind his eyes, he has two little circular membranes. Those are his tympanic membranes, or his eardrums. Going in front of his two eyes, there are two little holes on his nose. Those are called external nares. When we go inside his mouth, you might have to help your students with this. You're going to have to squeeze his jaw, and you might have to use your probe to very gently pry apart his jaws, like this. We're going to look at a few things. So frogs' tongues are attached to the front of their mouth, unlike ours, which are attached to the back. That, of course, is an adaptation that helps them catch flies and other flying insects. They have a ridge of teeth on their bottom jaw and their top jaw, called their maxillary teeth. And when you look inside his mouth, up at the top, behind his maxillary teeth, which is this ridge right here, you're going to see two really small holes. Those are his internal nares. That's how he breathes. And then two small ridged teeth right back here. And those are called the vomerine teeth. And those help equalize pressure within the frog, specifically with his tympanic membranes. Something else we're going to look at our frogs is we're going to determine what gender they are. And how we do this is by looking at their thumb pads on their hands. So a frog with an enlarged thumb pad is male, and a frog without an enlarged thumb pad is female. Now, this is the most likely case. We won't know for sure until we go ahead and look inside their abdomens to find out if they're male or female. but that is our best guess, just looking on the external anatomy of the frog. We're going to go ahead now and look inside, or at the internal anatomy of the frog. We're going to put him onto his back. Your students are going to take their scissors, and frogs have a lot of loose skin. You can see how I went on ahead and pinched that up. We're going to have your students cut a small V and then cut up the center of the frog's abdomen. Their skin is very, very fragile, so this should be very easy for your students to do. We're going to have them cut to the sides of each side of that line. You can see I have a flap of skin there. And you're going to have your students go ahead and remove that skin. They're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now we can see the frog's abdominal muscles. Now your students are going to take the very tip of their scissors and they're going to insert them into that middle line on the frog between the two walls of abdominal muscles. And they're going to cut up that line. They're going to want to cut up through the rib cage, which is right here. And that will be challenging for some of them, so you might have to step in and help them. Then just like they did before, they're going to cut on either side of that wall, or that abdominal line. Then they can go ahead and separate to see the internal organs of the frog. Now when we looked at the hands of the male, or of this frog, we thought that it was male. And we were correct on that because the females hold their eggs up against their organs underneath their muscles. Since we can see very clearly, that means that this is a male. I'm going to go ahead and you can have your students remove these membranes. And we can see their internal organs. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to go ahead and cut to remove those flaps of muscles just to make it easier for you to see. And now we can see the internal anatomy of our frog. So starting up at the top, underneath the frog's jaw, we can see its esophagus right here. Next to it, this organ is its heart. Around its heart are its lungs. You can have your students use their probe to remove the membranes and break that so that the organs are easier to see. So this is a lung right over here. I think I pointed to the wrong thing. This is the heart. These would be the lungs. I apologize. Then this large gray organ right here is the frog's liver. And the liver has 3 lobes. Ours, I believe, only has 2. Now when you pick up those lobes of the liver, we can look and see the frog's digestive tract. This right here is the frog's stomach. This right here is the frog's gallbladder. And then we have the intestines that run around here and wrap around themselves, much like they do in our bodies, down into the large intestine. Sorry. And then this is the pancreas. And this large intestine goes and connects to the cloaca. If you have time, you can have your students remove the stomach. Have them cut at the small intestine. And they may have to remove the liver, part of it, to be able to see this. The stomach, you can see, is very large. You want to cut up toward the top of the stomach. Have them cut through the membranes. And then they can look to see if they can tell what the frog ate last. Just have them insert their scissors and cut up through the tube that is their stomach. They can see the ridges of the stomach lining. And this frog has a fairly empty stomach. Some of your students might see flies or grasshoppers, sometimes legs or wings inside of their stomach. And that concludes our frog dissection.